What's up, everyone? It's your boy Shaft, aka That Mill Guy, here with my top 5 modern playable cards from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. This is going to be my, I guess, subjective opinion here, and I think in a lot of ways you will agree with a lot of the cards here, but especially with the honorable mentions, I think there are some things to take note of with some of the cards. And what's nice is, okay, they're the obvious cards, and I won't mention them just yet, the lands that are going to be really playable, but there are some corner cases where some of these honorable mentions might actually come through, and some of the lower tier stuff in terms of the lower side of the list might actually come through. And those are the things I want you to keep track of, and that's what I am kind of happy about with Kamigawa. There is a very obvious powerful cycle of cards that will see play. There's a lot of power for these cards on Arena and Historic, but at least for Modern, it seems relatively tame, except for, a couple of cards just being really powerful. Not busted, just really powerful. And again, the concept of cards being so damn fair that we're kind of blurring the lines between unfair, busted, and just, I don't know, fair and really powerful. But we'll see what happens here. Let's get right into the list. And like I mentioned, we have 2 honorable mentions. So first and foremost, we have Reforged Ronin, artifact creature human, 1 mana for a 2/2 with haste, which is really the big thing I'm working on here. At the beginning of your end step, return Reforged Ronin to its owner's hand, and then you can channel it for 2 and a red, discard Reforged Ronin, and draw cards. The reason I like this is really just that channel ability, right? When you see a 1 mana 2/2 with haste, your eyes gotta pop up, right? We have the Goblin Guide kind of idea, the concept. When you see 1 mana red aggressive creatures, you got to be thinking in the back of your mind, what can you do with this? Now, obviously, in something like Standard, this probably is really, really playable, just off the fact that it's a 1 mana 2/2 with haste. Obviously, returning to your hand at its end step is really important as well, especially to its owners. If you try and steal it and try and return it to your hand, that's not going to work. It's going to return to your owner's hand as well. So, Reforged Ronin, the ability to get in for 2, and then later, you can just return it to your hand. Maybe you play a 2-drop on turn 2. Maybe you play 2 more 1-drops on turn 1. You can just play it again. It gives you that continual gas. But late game, if you draw, you're able to cycle it away for 2 and just draw a card. So it almost feels like this card is never dead. In that scenario, if you just need to get in another attack, if you need to create another situation where your opponent needs to make weird blocks, you got that. And if you're top decking, you can just cycle it away. You can just replace it. And the discard shenanigans can matter in more and more Eternal formats. But that's why I think this card is actually pretty cool. And this art is... The artwork in this set is by far some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen. So shout out to that. Some of the coolest stuff. Anyway, honorable mention number 2, Roadside Reliquary. Now, Roadside Reliquary itself is going to be a card that I think might be able to work with Urza Saga. Might, right? Now, the card is an enchantment. The card is an enchantment, and it makes artifacts. So, maybe there's a world where you can sack this with Urza Saga or something else going on with an enchantment and an artifact. You pay 2, you just draw 2 cards. Maybe. And that's what's interesting here, right? It's just the fact that it has that ceiling on this card, right? It has that ability to be that powerful. Now, in a lot of ways, it's probably just going to be pay 2 mana, draw a card. But, like, again, this one's not high up there. I probably should have brought this up before the Ronin. Like, this one's a little lower for me than the Ronin, but, like, I think it's possible with Urza Saga. So, again, just an honorable mention, not part of the top 5. But look out for this one. It does create colorless mana. It doesn't come in untapped. Pretty solid. So, number 5 on the list, I got Colossal Skyturtle. Now, just giving you a heads up, there probably are a card or 2 that I'm missing here that I'm not bringing up. But again, this is just my own subjective list. I really, really like this card. First and foremost, I love turtles. Turtles are some of the cutest animals. I love little turtles. I like it when they be shaking around and bringing their head out of their shell. Love turtles. So you got me there subjectively. Number 2, sure, it's overcosted. It's 7 mana for a 6/5. The big thing that I care about with this card is its 2 channel abilities and its color identity. So what do I mean by its color identity? It pitches to Solitude. Pitches to Endurance and pitches to Force and Negation. 2 very relevant cards, especially in the Yorion decks. And alongside that, not only does it pitch that, because other cards do as well, it has 2 channel abilities. First one, 2 and a green, discard Colossal Skyturtle, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Great, you got a little bit of recursion. You don't need to pitch this. Return that Endurance to your hand. Return that Teferi to your hand. Return the 5 Fairy to your hand. Whatever it might be. Relevant ability. Channel, 1 in a blue. The second one, discard Colossal Skyturtle. Return target creature to its owner's hand. So, a relevant removal spell, a relevant recursion spell, and on color to pitch to some of the two most powerful free spells in the modern format. I think this card has some low-key, really high playability in the modern format right now, so I'd really look out for this, especially just as a 1 or 2 of in some of the Yorion decks. I think this card has a lot to it. And just as a threat, Flying Ward 2/6/5, not the worst thing in the world, but it really does feel like it quote-unquote draws a card or it just replaces itself, or it does more than you would think it does. So I'd really check out this card in that sense. Number 4, we have Reality Heist. Now this one, I do want to place it higher just because I think historically people really do under-evaluate the power of artifacts, and I am definitely going to be one of these people as well. I don't play many artifact strategies, but I do recognize their power. As someone that plays artifacts in Affinity, in Pauper, Affinity in Pauper, again, that's an extreme example because we do have the artifact lands, Ancient Den and all that stuff in Pauper. I understand the extreme end, but Reality Heist costing 1 less for each artifact on the battlefield. It's a dig through time for artifacts. So it's not just dig through time with affinity for artifacts. It's dig through time for, like, you do search for artifacts. And I guess I'm confusing myself here. I can't even speak, but it has the potential like to go off, right? You need 5 artifacts. That's not that hard. You know, some combination of Springleaf Drums and Ornithopters, maybe a Thought Monitor or 2 here and there. There are the artifact lands, so the lands can double up. You can use it to tap, and the the land itself is an indestructible artifact land. So there are things like that, and I think Reality Heist could be something, even as a 2 of, 3 of, that gives the affinity deck a big boost. Right now it's about a tier 2.52 deck. Might be able to push it up to a high tier 2 deck, maybe 1.5. Maybe this is the type of grind card or engine it needs to keep going, to bring back affinity, just keep churning and churning and churning through this deck. Imagine casting this for 2, grabbing a Thought Monitor, casting the Thought Monitor, drawing another one. You just kind of go on and on and on. There's a lot of card selection. You don't run out of gas. It actually could be really powerful in the affinity deck, so I'd really look out for this one. I have pretty high hopes, and especially at instant speed. Come on now, you can do this in response to removal spells. It's not sorcery speed, which is what's really powerful, and especially in older formats, in Legacy and Vintage, where artifacts are much more powerful as well, and more of them are out there, such as Opal. I think Reality Heist actually, especially in Vintage with like 8 casts and stuff, or I think that's Legacy. I think this card has some real legs, so look out for this. It's actually a super powered uncommon. Next up at number 3, we have Otawara Soaring City. Now this is gonna be a little bit obvious. I think you guys are just gonna try and you're gonna slowly understand what the top 3 is here. So it's obviously gonna be the lands here. Otawara Soaring City, legendary land, add a blue. You can also channel it for 1, so 1 blue and 3. Discard Otawara Soaring City. Return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or Planeswalker to its owner's hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. Why is this relevant? Why is this worded this way? Let's talk about that first. So why doesn't it say non-land permanent? Well, it wants you to bounce lands. If your opponent has creature lands, if your opponent has anything like that, you're going to be able to bounce it. So that's why specifically it doesn't say non-land permanent. It says each permanent artifact, creature, enchantment, Planeswalker. It has all of that. So this seems super powerful in any control deck, honestly. Any deck that wants to go long, this is going to be a great way for you to deal with anything that's uncounterable. This is an ability off a land. You're not going to be able to counter this with counterspell. This is not a spell. You need some type of ability that hits triggered abilities, right? I'm thinking Tail's End in Modern. That's going to be the type of card that hits this, nothing else. Now, the costing less per legendary spell or legendary creature is going to be a little bit harder because, again, it's legendary creature. It's not legendary permanent. Like, if you had something like Teferi Time Raveler, if you had something like Ren and 6, this card would be busted. So I think they knew what they were doing when they were wording this. It is usually going to be costing 4. It might end up costing 3. But regardless, I think a lot of control decks, a lot of blue decks in the current modern metagame, a lot of modern format are going to be running things like this. And be careful about your permanents. Permanents are, oh god, they're not here to stick around. Number 2, Boseiju, Who Endures. We are talking about permanents that do not stick around. This card, very similar to Otawara, channeled. Pay 2, discard Boseiju, Who Endures, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land an opponent controls. That player searches the library for a land, and this ability costs, so a basic land costs 1 less for each legendary creature you control. So this card, obviously, the big obvious discussion is this is a slam dunk in the Amulet Titan decks. This is also a slam dunk in many other green decks that can honestly use it. It's just disenchant. It's literally just disenchant. And I'm pretty sure there's a green analog as well that's not coming to mind. But the fact that it also deals with non-basic lands as well is really, really relevant. Now, it has the Assassin's Trophy Path to Exile line of giving your opponent a basic, which in this current modern metagame doesn't really feel that relevant in that sense, because obviously against some matchups it's pretty dead. They're going to have a lot of basics, but think about the Grixis Death Shadow matchup that plays a very varied and tricky mana base. Take out their blue source. If you take out their blue source with this, they're going to have to fetch for a basic swamp or a basic mountain. They don't play basic island anymore, so you're going to be able to shut them off Drown in the Loch, shut them off the 2 mana sorcery that I'm forgetting about right now, but they're going to be able to not play those cards when you have an effect like this. And then on top of that, destroy targeted enchantment. You're going to be able to deal with, of course, in Urza's Saga, obviously that's a non-basic land as well, but just kind of thinking on top of that, it's going to be able to deal with Tron lands. It's going to be able to deal with opposing bounce lands in the Titan deck. And again, the artifact is super relevant. If you're about to get one shot by a Colossal Hammer equipped onto a creature, destroy target artifact. If you have problems with an infect land, destroy target non-basic land. This card is absolutely insane. This card is absolutely insane. And I think with cards such as Ren and 6, which is, again, the second part of the discussion that return a lot of these cards to your hand, it may not end up being a quote-unquote lock piece, but it's a very, very, very powerful piece. You know, I'm not even mentioning the interaction and how busted this is against decks like Belcher. Think about decks like Belcher. This is just a main board answer to stop Belcher. They do not have basic lands. You're going to be able to stop their plan dead in its tracks. They ramped into an artifact, killed that. They ramped into, sorry, they're just playing a bunch of lands, tapped, whatever, destroy those as well. Boseiju, Who Endures, and Otawara, especially Boseiju, are going to have a real impact on the modern format. I don't think they're going to warp anything, but this is just more tools that you're going to see coming out of the Titan decks, any land decks, probably a Ren and 6 decks. So be very wary about cards like this, and especially something like this. Guess what? Ragavan is a legendary creature. Just to kind of end this off with this card, Ragavan's a legendary creature. I don't know what type of deck is going to have this, but maybe even Zoomer Jund, you play Ragavan on turn 1. On turn 2, when you have 2 mana, you can play a Ren 6, whatever. Or even on turn 2, with the Ragavan out, this costs 1. This is 1 green. Ragavan's a legendary creature. Decreases the activation cost of this card. Amazing and insane when you think about the applications of this card. And I've only listed off a few. So let's go into number 1, my favorite card from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty that I think will see the most play. Or a little bit of the most play. Boseiju is probably going to see the most, but a little bit of the most play coming out of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It's going to be Leion Sash, Aspiring Spike Spoiler. This is using the new reconfigure mechanic. Now, reconfigure is really just equip, but the weird thing is you can equip and unequip because these equipment are all creatures as well. So this one is a 2 mana 1/1 artifact creature equipment cat. Right, so it is a cat that is relevant to some of you EDHers out there. But you're going to be able to equip it for 2, unequip it back into a 1/1 for 2 as well. On it, the equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Leion Sash. Okay, so when you equip it, it's got no 1/1 counters. How do we do that? Well, guess what? For 1 white, you don't need to sack anything. You don't need to tap anything. Just for 1 white, as long as you have white mana, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a permanent card, put a 1/1 counter on Leion Sash. Oh, lordy lord. You got a problem with Croxa? You got a problem with Delirium? You got a problem with Mishra's Bauble? Lurus of the Dream Den? Anything that comes out of the goddamn graveyard. Dredge, Reanimator. The Stoneforge decks got an ace in the hole. This card is sick. Okay, this card is 100% going to be seeing a play as a... I mean, not even just a 1 of it. Probably could be seeing play as a 2 of, potentially. Maybe 3 of might be a little bit of a stretch, but just having multiple copies of this. This is the white version of this is the white version of that green creature that pays 1, exiles a card, and you gain 2 life. Again, my naming is so bad. I forgot so many cards, but you can see I haven't really planned this out. Leion Sash, regardless, so powerful. Scavenging Ooze, sorry, so powerful. The Scavenging Ooze in white, making your creature stronger and stronger. It doesn't even matter. You don't even need to make your creature stronger and stronger. This is literally just making itself stronger and stronger. It's not gaining you life, but it's making your other creatures stronger and stronger as well if you equip them, and you're able to 2 this up again with Stoneforge Mystic. So powerful, and especially at such a low cost, this is extremely relevant in its colors, especially when you think about the type of colors and how blue-white control, the Stoneforge decks, how they build their mana base. The white is so relevant. This card is going to be insane. I think, honestly, auto-include as a 1 to 2 of in all the Stoneforge decks. You got to be playing this. It's just free value. It's a permanent card. Any permanent card. It could be a land. It could be a creature. Whatever it is. Artifact, enchantment, any permanent card. You're getting that 1/1 counter. And that's why I think this is going to see the most play, because it's just an auto-include in any Stoneforge deck. Now, past that, that is my top 5 list. Let me know what you think are going to be some cards that are playable in Modern itself. I think this is my list, and I think a lot of people can agree with at least like the lands and the Leion Sash. But other than that, what do you think about my honorable mentions in number 4 and 5? What do you think about the Turtle? I think the Turtle is actually going to be seeing some play and potentially some of the Cascade decks as well, as a way to pitch to force and just return some enablers and everything. Maybe bounce a creature that's stopping you from casting multiple spells a turn, which stops Cascade. So that could be really interesting as well. But I'm going to leave it up to you. Thanks everyone for watching. Remember that even the impossible is possible. And as we ponder that thought, I hope you'll join me next time as we take a glimpse into